Okie doke. So today I'm going to try and gather my thoughts and talk to you about a subject that I think about on and off throughout the years. Every time I come across certain types of TV shows, I've tried to really cut back and keep it limited to a couple of shows because, I'm a part-time conspiracy theorist, so I really should not be watching TV at all. But I grew up in a TV-loving household, and it really has some emotional ties, so it's really difficult. But I'm confident in the next couple of years I'm going to be able to kick the TV habit, especially with Game of Thrones ending. I think once Game of Thrones is over, I'm just going to completely cut the TV off by that point. If you're a Christian and you've heard of Game of Thrones, you're probably like, oh my god, you watch Game of Thrones? But I do. I think it is an amazing show, like most people do. The more intriguing the story, the better the show is for me, and Game of Thrones to me is unmatched. There's a lot of shows that have been my favorite. I loved The Sopranos, I loved The Wire, Mad Men. I mean, these are all like jewels in the TV crown for me. But this show, I rewatch every year. I recap it. I have never gone and rewatched any old episodes of those other shows. Like, this show is just really, it's very meaty. A lot of Easter eggs, so you're almost like not even really watching the same show the second time or the third time. You're catching so much more detail, partly because it's based on very extensive books, very exhaustive books. It's really kind of a historical type show, even though there's a lot of fantasy elements. Why am I spending so much time on prefacing this about a freaking TV show? Well, because every time I think about a show like this, I inevitably have to draw parallels with the Bible. This world that has been created is probably the closest to the Bible, maybe not in themes, but just these two worlds have a lot in common. And they're very intriguing, very detailed. What I find interesting is that, the closer a TV show, any TV show really gets to, being able to really get down to the heart of matters and telling stories that are just really truthful, that don't hold back, for the sake of the audience, but really just telling it like this is what happened and you will deal with it. These shows are the most praised shows. Intricate shows with things that you have to go back to the first season and listen for the dialogue and you figure out, oh my gosh, they knew they were going to go here way back when this thing started. That type of stuff. People love shows like that. And excuse me, another show that I wasn't as much of a fan of, because I think it kind of went off the deep end towards the end, was Lost. But what I loved about Lost is its ambition to really give you a mystery and a cliffhanger and oh my gosh, what did I just see? It wasn't always able to cash that check that it wrote, but just the effort, I think people really appreciated, because that show like really freaked some people out. The point that I'm trying to make is that these shows, really, as good as they are, to me, they are nipping at the heels of the Bible. They're nipping at the heels of the Bible. The Bible is, they're not even nipping at the heels. The Bible is a whole lap ahead, and they're still nipping at the heels, but they're a lap behind. Because the Bible's got everything that these shows have, and are better written. Eventually, these shows, they they get toward the end and they get a little frayed, they get a little worn, they get a little obvious. And it's because man, with all our efforts and with a whole panel of people, sitting around a room trying to make something as close to reality and as close to believable as we can, brilliant minds working together, sometimes our stuff doesn't fit right, or it's like, well, how did that guy get there so fast if he was here, but these people still are, it's like eventually there's going to be some flaws, and we want to enjoy it. We want to enjoy that flawless storytelling experience, and we understand, but it just falls short. It falls short. And every time I watch a show like this, I'm like, man, this is how I know folks didn't write the Bible, because the Bible is like so, in terms of storytelling, it's like, you're not on the level. You can't get on the level. Like, I don't think people, obviously, you got a lot of people that just poo-poo the Bible. They don't want you to open it and look inside it and read what's in it. I get it. So they have to discourage it. But for a long time, I would say up to the last 100 years, reading the Bible, knowing about the Bible, having read Genesis or having read, one of the books, that was considered, you were an astute, erudite person. You were a scholarly person if you had read some of the Bible, because the Bible is literature, and it is very, very, very important literature. Like, aside from its religious meaning. And everybody understood that. Everybody understood the Bible was required reading. And I don't know if that explains why people are a little less smart these days. People are a little expecting people's minds to be blown way too easily these days. Because if you're not getting your literary devices from the Bible, you are going to be making some mistakes. You're going to be making some really shoddy writing. Let me see if I can think of an example. Aside from the fact that when you think about the Bible as a complete work, first of all, it includes the past, it includes the present, and the future. The Bible is literally not done narrating itself. Here's what I mean. Go back to if you go to Revelation. Revelation is the last book, right? It's talking about future events, right? The apocalypse, all that stuff. Okay, well, you know what's after that? And the apocalypse happens, and then the world comes to an end, right? No. After this world as we know it comes to an end, there's still at least 1,000 years that have to be fulfilled. 1,000 more years that have to be accounted for after this world that we know as we know of it comes to an end. Who is thinking about that? Who is thinking about that? I can't even wrap my mind around it. Like, I have read Revelation a couple times, and only in the last 6 months did I have to go, okay, wait. Because after I'm gone, let's say I get raptured, I believe in the rapture. Let's say I don't get raptured, there's no rapture, and we just go through the tribulation until we each get martyred one by one, or whatever, or there's a nuclear war and we all die, whatever. Okay, I'm done thinking. I'm done thinking after that. I'm done. I don't care what happens after that. After I go to heaven, I bounce. I don't care about what's happening after that. You know who cares what's happening after that? The person who made the whole freaking world and knows that there's way more stuff after that, just like there's way more stuff before this. God is thinking about this stuff. Hold on a second. I'm pretty sure my child is in the toilet. Just a second. Okay, so where was I? So, oh boy, all my kids are waking up. I'm not going to be able to finish this. So yeah, The argument is that, the whole Bible's just tainted full of taint. It's just tainted. It's not reliable, don't read it. There's nothing people put in, so, okay. I am Tainty McTainerson. I'm going to put in a fake revelation that I had, a fake vision. Okay, I get taken to heaven, God shows me, I'm going to show you the end of everything. You know what I'm going to write in my human mind? I'm going to write about how God came and vanquished everybody, and we won the end. So be a Christian, because it's great. It's good for you. That's what my human vision is going to say. It's not going to say that he allows his followers to be martyred, and that the martyrs are standing before heaven saying, when are you going to avenge our blood? And he says, just wait a minute, I still got to get these other people down here. And then he goes and he sends 2 more witnesses that he knows the people are just going to just slaughter and, hold on a second. Slaughter and not listen to, and rejoice when he's dead and no longer warning them to repent and turn away from sin. They're going to send gifts to each other. They're going to be so happy that he's gone. They're gone, the 2 of them. And then he's going to try and get the people one more time. And then he's going to come down and rule and reign. But not forever. Just for 1,000 years. Because after that, while he's ruling and reigning for 1,000 years, Satan is going to be locked away. And it's going to be great. But he's going to be let out again after 1,000 years. Why? Because he just needs to be let out. Just for a time, he's going to be let out. He's going to be allowed to go and deceive all the nations yet again. And then he's going to be finally defeated. What? Why? Who would write that? Who would write that? Nobody. No human person would write that. I'm telling you, people, John, who was a real person, verifiably real person, was at the Isle of Patmos, verifiably real place, had a vision, sent a verifiably real letter out to the churches about this vision. The vision was highly regarded by the Christian church at that point because they were under heavy persecution. And here was this letter showing, look, God showed me the span of the next thousands of years. He's got this it's in the bag. Christian church breathed a sigh of relief, said, okay, well, I guess this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to go through all this stuff. Church holds on to the letters. They get martyred, but miraculously the numbers are exploding still. Point is, the Bible, narratively, there's nothing you can write that will surpass it. The current story that we are living is beyond. It's beyond what we could ever create. And as a writer myself, I am challenged to capture at least some of the biblical essence. You know what? I just remembered what I was going to open this with. Okay, so back to Game of Thrones. So there's this episode called The Door that just came on. And it's really hard to explain if you've never seen the show, and if you have seen the show but are not to this episode, I don't even want to get really deep into it now. You know what? I don't think I'm just not going to worry about spoilers here. So there's a character in the show, goes by the name of Hodor. He is named this largely for a mysterious reason. For some reason, this character who is challenged mentally, the only thing that he ever says is Hodor. Now, he understands what you're saying, but when he responds, he just responds Hodor. He's actually a servant to one of the lords in the show, so he understands well enough to do what he's told, and he always answers Hodor. And he's a nice character, a good character, sweet character. Everyone loves Hodor. The show is known for killing off its characters, its important characters, in a very upsetting way. which oddly makes people love the show more. It's really odd. After many seasons, it was finally Hodor's turn last week, and he dies protecting his lord. His name is Bran, the guy, the lord, and Bran is seeing a vision. He's going back in time, and he sees Hodor as a child, as like a teenager. And as a teenager, up to this point, he's talking. He's a regular boy. He's not little. He's actually kind of made from a giant. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But so he's got giant's blood, and so he's a large kind of bodyguard type character. So they're showing him as a child, and Bran goes back in a vision, and he sees him. And there's a moment simultaneously while he's in the present, sacrificing himself for Bran. Bran's in a vision seeing him as a child. And at one point, like, they see each other. So Bran goes back in time and Hodor can see him. Hodor then goes into like this seizure-like thing where he flops on the ground and he is basically being psychically taken to the scene of his own death, where Bran is trying to flee he's trying to flee this danger, and they tell Hodor to hold the door to keep it's like basically like zombies or like skeleton army, whatever, behind this door. And he's a really big guy, so they just need to buy enough time to get away. So they're telling Hodor to hold the door. And Hodor complies, and he somehow understands that he's going to die doing this. So Bran and then the girl that escapes with him, her name's Mira, and she's going, hold the door, hold the door. So Hodor, whose real name is Willis, and he goes immediately into the seizure of experiencing himself holding the door. I'm assuming he's sort of willing himself to hold this door, even though it's really scary and he doesn't want to be there. And these things are like behind the door, and they're kind of busting through, and they're tearing at his flesh, starting to break through. And he's going, hold the door. Willis, who's having the vision, is going, hold the door. And everybody's like, they don't know what's wrong with him. He's just flopping on the ground. And he's going, hold the door, hold the door, hold the door. And it eventually fades into Hodor. And for the people that are watching the show and have been watching the show, it's very affecting because of the implications. The implication is that the very fact that his name is Hodor means that he has known how he was going to die, what he was going to have to do for Bran, what was going to happen before Bran was even born, because Bran only knows him as Hodor. And I guess no one has really felt the need to explain anything about him, and it's not like he's going to bring it up. And of course that also means that the author would have known that he was going to do this with the character Hodor from day one, because the character has always been named Hodor in the books. So from before he even wrote the books, he knew that he was going to do this with this character, that this character was going to hold the door, quote unquote, way down the line in a book that technically he hasn't even written yet. Okay? Are you following what I'm saying here? So this is like book number 5 that he's on. He's the author that is inspired the TV show is about to write the next book, I guess book 6. So the TV show is ahead of the books, technically, even though some things are altered and different from the books. But the people that have read these books that came out in 96 and have been a series up until now, those people and the TV show watchers are both watching this show and not knowing what's going to happen next at this point, because he hasn't written the 6th book. But from book 1 to the future book that hasn't been written yet, George R.R. Martin knew from the beginning that he was going to sacrifice this character. Are you following me here? Are you following me here? Are you following me here? So we lost a very important character, a very lovely character, to sacrifice that was so intense that it literally shaped this person's life as a young man before it even happened. So it was a very powerful narrative element. And after the show, all I kept comparing it to was the Word. Because I'm thinking, in so many words, I'm thinking, been there, done that. Well, God's done that. God's been there. He's already blew the mind chunks like that. A couple different ways. A couple different times. He did it with Joseph, where he had Joseph was sold into slavery and eventually became second in command of Egypt. And he had told Abraham before this was maybe 4 generations before Joseph. God told Abraham, like, your ancestors are going to be enslaved for 400 years, but I'm going to deliver them. And you can say, oh, well, of course somebody can easily, write all this after the fact. Okay, but who would say that? Who would say that God was not only knew that they were going to be enslaved, but that how long they were going to be enslaved, and when he was going to get them out? Like, why would you include that as a detail? Like, who would do that? That's something that makes God confusing. It doesn't make God simple to put that detail in. And it's not even something that we would think of. It's just not. Especially not thousands of years ago. I mean, if we're talking about Game of Thrones, then yeah, it would be, this is a very interesting narrative device here. But we're talking thousands of years. This is cave drawing days that we're talking about, okay? They wouldn't be having plot devices back then. There's something else. There's a couple other things. Well, I won't get into that right now. But, yeah, and that's just one. That's just one. Let's not even get into Jesus. I mean, this is what caused the church to explode. This is what caused the church to explode. Just the realization of Jesus being embedded in their entire culture for thousands of years before he showed up. Then he came and fulfilled all that stuff on the down low. Like, it was in public, but people didn't understand it. They were blind to it. And just saying, okay, this is what you thought. This is what you thought the purposes of, the Israelites and you doing these laws and these feasts and these prophetic words. And this is what you thought I was talking about and this was about. And it was really about this one guy. It was about him. It was never about you being awesome and God choosing the Jewish people because they were the best, they were the coolest, or even because they were the humblest or the smallest. He chose them because he chose them. Because of Abraham. Because Abraham believed. He was kind of the first recorded instance of belief in God. So he started with that as the root. Belief, faith as the root. He raised up these people, not so they could lord it over the rest of the world, that God was their God, but so that Jesus, so that Jesus could come through that line, through a God-approved line of humans, come to the earth and save everything. Everybody and everything. That's what the whole thing was about. And when people realized that, when the Jewish people realized that, it blew their freaking minds out of their brains. It completely splattered everywhere. And they were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then, just to confirm that they were indeed on the right track, Jesus would show up and say, yep, you're on the right track. That's right. I'm Jesus. I'm God. I'm the Son of God. This is what you need to do. That's how the church got started. That's why the church was able to burn through that opposition like it was freaking butter. Burn through that persecution like it was butter. and create a thousands of years old religion. It wasn't established with gold or conquest or armies or any of that human stuff that other religions know about. Awesomeness, being gurus, having any sort of human advantage. Nobody, just like today, nobody ever liked a Christian. They were not feeling the Christians. All the Christians did when they came to town was clean out the brothels. All the people wanted to destroy their idols. They weren't buying things. They stopped consuming things, the things that these huge cities relied on. They stopped going to the casino. They stopped going to the strip club. People hated Christians. And that's what their testimony would be against the Christians. Hey, these Christians are coming in and they're ruining our commerce. They're ruining our business. Nobody wants to do anything evil anymore. They just want to do this crazy stuff and do crazy stuff together, in private. That was the gripe. The gripe back in the day was that Christians did their job. And it really genuinely affected society. So, why am I saying all that? All I know is this is genuinely the greatest story ever told. Like, have you ever heard of that movie, The Greatest Story Ever Told? It's like Bible stories and stuff. It literally is. It literally is the greatest. Nobody can get close. Did you see that Lost finale? That Lost finale was a joke. It was a joke. You know why? Because they did not have the fundamental elements that you need to make something awesome. And God owns those. But they didn't want to offend anybody, so they ended up with a non-offensive, watered down, non-committal heaven that they all went to. It was just ridiculous. They couldn't weave it all together. They couldn't weave together over a course of many years with many hands at this wheel. They could not weave together a story that was as profound as a single person's life. As a single person's life. The way that people's lives are woven together is so profound and intricate. That's why we make movies. That's why we make books. To tell stories of people's lives. Because they're so amazing. And we're trying desperately to imitate what God is doing on a daily basis. Like, God is the master storyteller. He is the master storyteller. And if you want to learn how to make good stories like God makes stories, you need to read his story. Because you're going to be able to it's going to be irony. You're going to understand irony like a mug. You're going to understand metaphor. Hold on a second. I'm back. Okay. You're going to understand symbolism. You're going to understand themes. You're going to understand consistency of a story. You're going to understand character like a mug. Okay? You're going to understand voice. It's everything. Oh my gosh, y'all. So anyway, my point is that when I think of these grand, great, not even just television, but cinema too. These grand examples either are in the shadow of the Bible or heavily, I don't know if they would necessarily be influenced, but all the things that we love about those pieces of art are all the things that the Bible is. It is history. It is, action, testimony, poetry. It is, Proverbs. It is scripture, law. It's prose. It's sort of this gonzo journalism. I mean, it is all of these things. It's modern. For some reason, like, even before anyone ever even conceived of modern, that's what it is. It's scientific. It's instructional. It's everything. It's everything. It's got everything. And you really just, I mean, I can say this with complete confidence. You are really lacking a certain dimension as a human being if you have not read and studied the Bible. You are a two-dimensional cartoon stick person if you have not gotten into this word. Go find a Bible. If you're afraid that you're going to come across a law that you don't happen to like and that you think is bogus, I'm going to tell you what to avoid. Leviticus. And I'm done. That's it, you guys. The law is not, it's the thousands-page book that we're talking about. And the part that you're trying to avoid is one book. You maybe could count Exodus. But it's not even talking to you, it's talking to the people of Israel. But if that's like kind of the origin of the law. So, you know, if you want to if you're just super strict about it, then cut out Exodus too. But absolutely avoid Leviticus. Oh, and Deuteronomy. That's Moses telling the people about the law. You got 63 other books to read. I recommend Genesis. I'm a personal fan of 1st, 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd Kings. It's good stuff right there. Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. And then Revelation. You have got to read those books. If you want to be a better person, read those books. Study those books. Everything else is good reading. Psalms too. Okay, let me go back. What did I say? Genesis, 1st Kings, 2nd Kings, 1st Samuel, 2nd Samuel, Psalms, Proverbs. Okay? That's the Old Testament. That's required, in my opinion. Gospels, New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Maybe a little bit of Acts. Get you in some Romans. If you don't read any of the rest of Paul's letters, read Romans. Then read Revelation. Oh, and maybe one of John's. There's the 1st, 2nd, 3rd John. They're like each two pages each. Knock yourself out. And then maybe Corinthians, 1 Corinthians. Everybody loves the love chapter. So go read the love chapter, 1 Corinthians. And that's it. That'll take you a couple of weeks. Well, the Old Testament stuff will take you a little while longer. But start on the New Testament, take a couple of weeks. Go read the Bible. Go read it. It's not gonna, I promise you, it won't bite you. It's not gonna hurt you. It may challenge you in certain areas, but don't read it to be challenged. Read it to enjoy it as a piece of literature. Read it as a piece of literature, y'all. Read it as a piece of literature. Okay, I think I'm done with that. So, God bless y'all. Be blessed. Go out and be blessed, everybody. Blessed, blessed, blessed. In Jesus' name, amen.